Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again, and today's video is going to be my Creature Commandos, I guess like first impression, but really properly discussed in the first two episodes that came out about an hour and a half ago, roughly, on from when I'm recording this video. So I've obviously watched both episodes, watched them back to back, didn't really let like episode one marinate and then jump into episode two. They're only like 20 odd minutes. I think episode one was like 23, 24 minutes, and I think episode two was only like 22. So very short episodes, and that is a con in regards to one aspect, which we'll talk about in this video. But of course, spoiler, because we're going to be talking about, spoilers that happen. There's nothing major, because it really is a lot of like setup in regards to whether it's the plot to an extent, but also just some stuff with characters. And there's only really one, I guess, like proper spoiler, and it is just in episode two, so it's going to be like a bit into the video. But yeah, if you've not watched the episodes, I'd probably go away. Unless you, in regards to first impressions, it's worth a watch. Simply, I won't talk about too much other than that. But if you wanted like a first impression in regards to whether you should watch it or not, give it a go. It's the shortest episodes ever. You're not even gonna have to spend an hour watching two episodes, and you get a good feel of the show. So go do it. It's worth it. But yeah, of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your opinions on Creature Commandos. You're going to keep watching it. I'd assume you would, just because they are shorter episodes. I know it's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass waiting an entire week to watch 20 minutes, but it's how they're doing it. So yeah, because this is the only week we're getting two episodes. Every week after this, it's one episode a week, which is a bit frustrating. But yeah, if you're going to continue watching, let me know in the comment section down below. And let me know your overall thoughts, and even like a rating out of 10 or out of 5, whichever way you want to do it. For whether it's just the first two episodes combined, or a rating for episode 1 and then a rating for episode 2. I can tell you now, before we jump into each episode, because I'm going to split it up into an episode 1 thoughts and then episode 2 thoughts. Episode 2 is clearly the stronger episode, like by far the stronger episode out of the two, but that's not necessarily saying episode 1 is complete arse, but we'll talk about it. But of course, if you enjoy the video, drop a like, takes 2 seconds, especially if you enjoyed not only the video, but also the show as well. So the rough plot for this, show starts up when we hear this group called the Sons of Themyscira. We even get a bit of a glimpse of Themyscira, but it's also like, is that a real photo or is that like an artistic interpretation? Like that's what the news is taking a photo of, or just like they're recreating Themyscira and how they think it looks. I'm not too sure. I wasn't too sure if that was proper footage or just like a conceptual image of what they think Themyscira is like. But they're working for Cersei or Cersei. They pronounce it Cersei, I think, on the show. I've always called it Cersei, so I'm going to keep calling it Cersei because that's the way I talk about it. But they're invading Pokolistan, which is obviously a fictional country. But they have like, I guess, like look like Russian, but anyway, I guess it's like themed around like that sort of area, if you want to put it, like Eastern European. Now, throughout the episode, specifically episode 1, but there's some sprinkling of it in episode 2, there are direct references to Peacemaker season 1 and the Suicide Squad. Specifically with Peacemaker season 1, it's just Amanda Waller stuff, really, because that's really the only character that crosses over. At least at the moment. I'm sure in future episodes, because I think we're meant to get like Economos and stuff, I think, in animation, so I think they're in like later episodes. But with the Suicide Squad, the clear references is like Rick Flag dying, Weasel was a part there, and they just sort of reference some stuff that happened there. The show is set 2 years after the Suicide Squad, and I think like a year after Peacemaker, roughly. So that's like the timeline that we're in. But it's set in the present day. But Rick Flag Sr., not Junior, because he is yeeted. Rick Flag Sr. is tasked to head Task Force M, as Argus can't use human teams anymore, human task force. But there's a bit of a loophole, because while there's people there there's like members of Task Force M which may have been human in the past, or might have humanoid features or abilities and stuff like that, they aren't classed as human. They're classed, might I say, I guess, as monsters, hence Task Force M, or, the Creature Commandos. Now, the team members that are actually like on Task Force M as we leave Belle Reve and go on the mission is the Bride, GI Robot, Dr. Phosphorus, Weasel, who we'd met in the Suicide Squad, Nina Mazursky, and Rick Flag Sr. And when we left that group, I thought maybe like an interesting complex character there might have been Nina Mazursky, because she seemed very innocent, but then she's locked up here, so what's the go? But she's not the character that was the most interesting once we finished episode 2, and I think even episode 1. But as I've noticed, and I feel like it's going to be the case up until probably the finale. I think the finale won't be the case, but it'll be like a roundup. But I feel like from episode 2 through to 6, we're going to get like origin stories, or like backstories for all the characters. Obviously in episode 2 it's the Bride, but I feel like you're going to get a backstory episode for GI Robot, Dr. Phosphorus, Weasel, and then Nina Mazursky. I think they might leave Nina Mazursky to last because she seems like the most complex and like, sticks out like a bit of a sore thumb with the rest of the group. But I think that's a good way to break it up, because I must say episode 1, I'll just say it right now, the pacing for episode 1 was god awful. It was really bad. Like I was really struggling with it. Episode 2 flowed so well, really well done episode, and because of the nature of it, that's why I'm hoping the rest of the episodes are like that leading up to the finale, like jumping into backstories and having a proper focus there. But episode 1 was so unfocused. It didn't really know what it was doing, and it had a really quick start as well. Like within like 3 minutes, we've left Belle Reve. So I was like, okay, we're rolling, and then it just comes to a halt. Once we get to that castle, we meet the princess in Pakistan and stuff like that, and some interactions. It just goes really slow, and I just didn't really like the back half of episode 1. I thought, oh god, like this could be rough. Then all those worries were sort of wiped away once episode 2 started. But Task Force M is sent to Pakistan to protect it, and I guess like the main area, and in regards to a primary figure, it's Princess, who is I guess, I don't know, just attracted specifically to Rick Flag Sr. or just older men in general. But yeah, there's a thing going on there which I guess evolves more in episode 2, which we'll touch upon. But we do learn a couple of things that we hadn't learned, I think, previously. Like Rick Flag Sr. had Rick Flag Jr., who we'd seen in Suicide Squad and the Suicide Squad. He had him at 18, which a lot of people theorize, because it's like, how are they going to do this age difference where Rick Flag Sr. is still fit enough to go out into the field and be active and stuff like that, but Rick Flag Jr. had, clearly been doing this for a bit, and, wasn't necessarily a young pup leading the, is experienced enough to be leading Task Force X. So they explained that, like, he had him pretty much quite early in his life. Now, we did get the Rick Flag versus Phosphorus fight, which I thought was good, and I thought it was probably like the highlight of episode 1 outside of like the really fast start. But I did like the fact that, like, Rick Flag had to use like the oven mitt and stuff. And there was obviously some little bits where like Dr. Phosphorus probably could have won more, but I think they also needed to have something like that where one of the team members, if not more, we might get in like another episode as well, like a future episode, but I think they probably did this fight just to sort of address it now, is that, like, these are villains at the end of the day. They've done bad stuff, so why wouldn't they try to escape? Or they think that Rick Flag is almost keeping them captive. So I did like they had that fight there, and I guess Phosphorus was the one that was more like on edge and would do something like that, so I felt it fit. And the one character, because I was like, they were in the intro and I knew they were in the show, and I was like, where the hell is this Eric Frankenstein? Where the hell is he? Because he was in the intro, and I was like, wait, am I tripping out? Did I just miss out on something? I was like, where is he? Because I just assumed he would be in the prison with them, like in Belle Reve, but he wasn't. He's out and about, and we see that he's like, I don't know if he's like working security, but he's just elsewhere. He was on like a yacht, like a private yacht and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, that's going to lead into episode 2. But I think episode 1 as a whole, I think it's I'm very relieved that they released episode 1 and 2 on the same day, because episode 1, they clearly had to set everything else up, but I felt like they also didn't want to jump too much into the story or like the overarching plot, because of how it's split up. I can understand once we start episode 2, I'm like, okay, well, I understand why none of this was really in episode 1, but maybe they should have done something else. Maybe there could have been like a minor quick mission or something in episode 1 just to allow it to flow better. But the plan from the get-go was probably just to release episode 1 and 2 together. They're shorter episodes, so it didn't really matter too much that it gets a bit slow and messy in that second half of episode 1. But thank the Lord for episode 2. And episode 1 was called the Collywobbles. I forgot to mention that, because episode 2 is called the Tourmaline Necklace, and I was wondering, okay, well, what's the Tourmaline Necklace? I thought it was like something I needed to know going into it. But this episode is purely focused on the bride, and this is sort of what I mean, where I feel like episode 3 is going to be about this character, episode 4 is going to be about this character, same with 5 and 6, and then I'd assume then 7 is the season finale, and that's not really going to focus, at least in regards to a specific character. Maybe it's a focus on the villain. Maybe it's Cersei. I'm not too sure. But we start like pretty much from the beginning of the bride up until present day, because we start with her origin in, I was going to say 1931, but 1831. And Dr. Frankenstein is pretty much blackmailed into making her by his monster, or Eric Frankenstein, because, well, he's like, well, if I can't have my bride, neither can you. She's going to die. So he's pretty much like, oh, I got to do this now, don't I? And I think it was interesting, like with her and Nina Mazursky, going into the castle and pretty much just reliving her early days through seeing like visual cues and stuff. I thought this was a good way to split up the story as well, because they can progress the present day stuff and what was happening there, and then quickly just jump to the meat and potatoes and what we need to know from her actual origin in the past. But they are searching for the namesake of the episode, which was the tourmaline necklace. Now, I thought this was going to have maybe like I was actually wasn't too sure exactly what it was going to be, because I didn't necessarily expect the story or the personal story with the bride to develop the way it did throughout the episode. So I thought maybe there was a more significant plot reason, like once we get to episode 5 or something, for this necklace, or maybe it was something that Cersei was after and the bride was like, oh, well, I've got to find her before she does because I know she's in this area. But they didn't do that, and I actually appreciate that, because it's got more of a significant meaning to at least specifically the character of the bride. But once she's created, Frankenstein's monster does not like the budding relationship between Dr. Frankenstein and the bride, because obviously he's like, well, you created her for me. She's meant to be mine. So it's a very like possessive, if not very like controlling, toxic sort of thing that the Eric Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster is going on about with her. And once this started, I'm like, okay, this is going to end well, because throughout it, when she was walking through, it almost seemed like Dr. Frankenstein was a negative to her, like as if she hated him and everything like that. But it's not, and I like that bit of like a bit of a bait and switch there, because once we find the tourmaline necklace in question, we actually learn that it was a gift. It was actually a gift from Dr. Frankenstein once she sort of like started to learn and progress and know herself more. But unfortunately, when she finds the necklace, Cersei arrives, because she's been alerted by the Sons of Themyscira about, not only the bride being in the castle, but also Nina Mazursky. So, of course, someone's going to be attacked, aren't they? And the fight with Cersei actually reveals the real relationship with Dr. Frankenstein. Like, it's not just like a father-daughter thing, which I thought it might have been. It develops into a very, well, a romantic one and stuff, and Frankenstein walks in on them doing the old kit and caboodle, if you want to put it, and is not too happy, and he actually ends up killing Dr. Frankenstein, which destroys the bride, as you'd expect, but also causes a fight between the two. So when we meet Frankenstein in episode 1, it sounds like it's like they're lost lovers, and maybe when she was imprisoned and stuff in Belle Reve, like they lost their connection and stuff. No, he is a flat out stalker. He is a flat out goddamn stalker. And I thought my episode was glitching, by the way, when I was watching it, because it's sort of like I could hear the music, but there was just sort of like flashing images. I'm like, okay, is this some weird credit thing? But it was just a stylistic thing, I guess you could say, because she runs from the castle after in the past in 1831, after sort of getting Frankenstein away from her, and he gets like significantly burned, I guess, but he would just heal. But we used to get like a montage of him stalking her through history, which I was like up until the present day. I think like we see like the 90s or something, the last time that they actually like at least focus on a specific year. But I thought that montage was actually pretty cool and interesting, that he is that obsessed with her, which obviously highlights what it's going to be like when he catches up to her now in the present day. But I am also interested, like, how is that going to develop? Is he actually like a proper villain in the series in regards to a villain to Task Force M and the bride, or is there a bit of a reconciliation there? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure which angle they're going to go about, because I think a lot of people just expected this character to be on Task Force M, but he's not. He's a rogue unit. He's a loose unit. He has no affiliation. He doesn't have a bomb in the back of his head, or at least we shouldn't assume he does. So I'm very intrigued to see how that dynamic, just specifically with Frankenstein's monster, or I guess we'll just call him Frankenstein now because Dr. Frankenstein's dead. But I'm interested to see how that dynamic with Frankenstein with the rest of the crew works, as well as specifically the bride, and I guess just working with the team if that's what happens. But that's a wait and see, I guess. Now, the only thing I just did not care for, and I felt like it was just, I'm hoping there's a reason for it. It's like there's a bit of a twist. I do not care at all about the princess and Rick Flag Senior stuff. I don't care about it at all. I think it's just really to have Rick Flag Senior doing something, because he's meant to be in the castle protecting the princess. So I think there's just really nothing for him to do. I think until like they leave the castle and are searching for the bride and Nina Mazursky. Yeah, I don't care for it at all. If that wasn't in there as well, like it'd be like nothing really too like vulgar, if you want to put it. So yeah, I just don't really care for that at the moment. At the very least, I'm sort of hoping there's a bit of a twist there, but that's me hoping. So I've got to critique it at the moment, because I don't know if it's going to have the twist, but it's the thing I'm just like, I don't care about this at all. But yeah, as I said, episode 2 was way better paced than episode 1. If the rest of the show, or at least leading up until the season finale, so if episode 3, 4, 5, 6 are the very similar in pacing and style to this second episode. Obviously, those episodes focusing on another character of the team. So GI Robot, Weasel, Dr. Phosphorus, and Nina Mazursky, which I'm assuming is going to be the case based off that lineup. Not in that order specifically, but just in regards to the amount of episodes left until the finale. I think we're in for a pretty solid show, which I'm looking forward to. So episode 1, I'd give like a 3 out of 5, but episode 2, man, I'd probably have to give it like a really solid 4, 4.5. I really have to. Like episode 1, sorry, rough start. Episode 2, I think, did a really, really good job. While there's maybe, like as I said, like there's some stuff that I don't really care too much about, but it's not enough to really bring it below a 4. So yeah, like a 4, 4.5, roughly around there. I'm really happy with episode 2, and it makes me look forward to episode 3 to see if it follows that. You don't want it to be like a copy and paste sort of thing. You just replace the bride with Dr. Phosphorus, but I'd assume it's going to be that similar style. But it's just about like the complexities of the character in the past, why they are what they are, and how they might change throughout the rest of the season when they're mixed in with those other backstories as well. So yeah, solid stuff for the show, which I'm relieved about. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your overall thoughts on the first 2 episodes of Creature Commandos. You can just break them down episode by episode, or just give an overall rating and thoughts on the 2 episodes combined. Curious to hear what you guys are thinking. Who's your favorite character so far? I think it'd be pretty hard to not say the bride, because there was so much focus on her. Even in episode 1, there was still a decent amount of focus. But I guess which character intrigues you the most? I think outside of the bride, Nina Mazursky, because of the complexity there, but I think also Dr. Phosphorus as well. I'm intrigued just because of how he is. So I'm just intrigued to see how they put that in the DCU and this show as a whole. So yeah, let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.